Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back here Monday about 5 o'clock in the evening, Eastern time. Jay and I are going to run through everything in week 2 of the NFL. Had a whole slate of games on Sunday. Got your Monday night game tonight. You got the Saints breaking in the new Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas. So that should be probably an offensive showdown, I would assume. 2 decent offenses. Saints got a good defense, but didn't play that great week 1. So we'll see. We'll give our thoughts on that. As I mentioned, all of the week 2 thoughts as well. Got some little NBA action. AD's game winner last night that put the Lakers up 2-0. The Celtics bounced back in game 3, a much-needed win, almost, if you will, basically a must-win, because if you go down 3-0, no team has ever come back and won down 3-0 in any series in the NBA. So we will talk about all of that. But first off, Jay, how was your Monday?
Not bad at all, man. Just a bunch of teaching people how to use software.
Jay is like
a couple walkthroughs.
Teaching the elderly how to use an iPad or a Surface
his
Pro,
today was a new
is.
Samsung tablet.
Yeah. See, Jay, that's what our generation does for our elders. We teach them how to use technology. And
it's really
I guess,
not that
if
hard.
you will, they teach us how to, I don't know what they teach us, how to live life. Life experiences. There you go.
How to walk barefoot through the snow uphill both ways to school and back.
Yeah, and through like burning coals or something.
Yeah. I mean, I just said snow, but yeah.
No, the fire walk on the beach.
All right, man.
That's Michael Scott. But anyways, all right. So first, before we get into any of those games from week 2, Jay, this week, it was catastrophic as far as injuries go. I mean, try and stay with me here on all of these names. I'll take a break in between some of these
Go
names.
ahead.
So, all right, let's just start with some of the big ones. I mean, really, these are just big name guys. I didn't even list off all the other guys that got nicks and bumps and whatever that had to leave the game. Nick Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo, Solomon Thomas, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Saquon Barkley, Drew Lock, Cortland Sutton, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, Malik Hooker, Paris Campbell, he's still with me, Brandon Sheriff, Byron Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Anthony Barr, Caleb McGarry, Will Fuller. Those are a lot of big names that just got hurt week 2. That doesn't even include the guys that were hurt before week 2. Michael Thomas, Dee Ford, Marlon Mack, George Kittle, Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Tyron Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, Jamison Crowder, Philip Lindsay, David DeCastro, Kenny Clark, A.J. Brown, Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Kawan Short, just to name a few. Now that is a lot of big-name guys who make a lot of money and a lot of people know about. These are stars, Pro Bowl guys. I mean, you saw Cam Akers go down for the Rams. Who else was it? Who else were some other guys that went down? Jay,
did you say Drew Lock?
I did say Drew Lock. Yes, okay. I know. Like I said, I told you to stay with me. I was going down fast. I was rattling off these names, but it's just we talked about it last week. You're really seeing how no preseason is affecting these players, let alone the on the field chemistry, how offenses and defenses are starting to click, but the conditioning and the just what preseason does, it just gets their legs a little bit under them. I've always been a big component of I hate preseason. I barely ever watch it. I think it's boring as shit. But I think through 2 weeks, it's showing that it has at least some value, if not a great deal of value. Because, yeah, there are injuries in preseason. But, I mean, right now, last week, these players were asked to go full go 100% because these games mean something right away. In the preseason, game 1, you maybe play 25 to 30 snaps with your number 1s, then your number 2s, weed out number 3s, and then the end of the roster guys. Same thing with week 2, you play a certain percentage of the snaps. Week 3, same thing. Week 4, basically that's kind of the end of the last 5 or 6 guys that are going to make the roster. That's how you determine that. But you just work yourself into game shape and things like that, and just preparing your body for this hell of a season, because, man, it's really taking a toll on people right now, Jay.
Yeah, I think a good way to measure how a lot of teams would do the preseason. I know a couple was it last year or the year before, where McVay basically came out and said, I'm not playing my starters during the preseason? Or
I think it was 2 years ago, but a lot of people mimicked the Rams off of that last year.
But before that, it was basically your starters play the first drive or two the first game, then they play maybe the first quarter of the second game, then they play the first half the third game, and then they don't play at all the fourth game. But I actually like preseason. I liked watching the games and watching the players that maybe you didn't know about. But if you would have asked me if it would have had an impact, if they would, because if you remember, I was a big proponent of shortening the preseason, adding the 2 extra regular season games. If you would have asked me how much it would, hurt or take away a football injury during the regular season without a preseason, I wouldn't have said it was that much. I'd have said you might see a couple, 1 or 2, handful of guys nicked up from not being able to go full go for that long. But just thinking of the guys you just named, and that wasn't even naming average starters or key depth backup guys that all have been hurt in the past couple weeks.
I mean, another star we talked about before was Von Miller, who got hurt a couple weeks ago. I didn't even, before the season started, I didn't add him to that list. But there you go. There's another guy. Richard Sherman.
I told you when we were watching we were watching the Colts game this weekend, I said, I hope this doesn't affect college football. And you made a good point. It really can't. They're not going to do anything based off of the NFL. But it's kind of scary seeing how many guys are going down. And as you're watching your team, it's like every play you're just holding your breath, hoping that a key guy doesn't go down. Yeah, I mean,
you are.
We are Colts fans. That's known. We watch every game. Just this year, we've been through 2 weeks. They're down both their starting tight ends, starting wide receiver, starting running back, cornerback, now free safety, defensive end. So it's scary. And the Colts aren't even the worst plagued team out there. The Eagles are destroyed. The 49ers are throttled. There's a bunch of teams with a bunch of good guys that are out, and I hope this does not continue.
The injuries don't even include the guys that chose to opt out either. I mean, a lot of those teams were affected by that. I mean, the Patriots had like 7 defensive players opt out. I mean, you saw the Vikings. The Vikings had one of their premier defensive linemen opt out, and I think that's clearly starting to show. I did mention Danielle Hunter, who's also been hurt for Minnesota. He hasn't played yet this season.
Did you mention Anthony Barr?
I did mention Anthony Barr.
Okay, you went through a million names.
I did. I just went through a lot, just because I told you to stay with me. So, it's just, it sucks. And I was talking to my brother today. I was a little upset because I have Christian McCaffrey in our fantasy league, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks. And I mean, he's arguably my best player. But I mean, I was just like, damn, by week 6, I mean, you may not even know who's on the team. I mean, we may see. That's why these teams held 15. A 15-man practice squad, because they're like, shit, I mean, we got to have some extra backup, and these players have been with us at least a little bit longer than 3 days before we have to try and throw them into a game. They at least know some of the playbook and whatnot, but if this continues, damn, I mean, like you said, there's really nothing they can do, but
well, did you see where San Francisco, the players were all talking about it was that brand new turf was really fucking them up?
Actually, Brandon Marshall on First Things First talked about it this morning because he used to play for the Jets, and he said that he broke his collarbone or something because of that turf. He blames that turf for that injury as well. So that's also interesting.
Yeah, if that's the case, they need to figure something out with that ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, apparently I don't know if the league's investigating it or if the Jets are looking into it or what the case is, but yeah. I know. I get you. It's scary.
It is. I just really hope this trend doesn't continue.
I do too. And that's just I just hate seeing anybody get injured. I mean, I never root for any team to, I cheer if I don't have to play their best player or what. I mean, just because I never wish injury upon anybody ever.
Well, do you want to just to sum it up, I think if you had to put one word on your first initial thought after week 2, it's injuries. And that sucks. They should never come over the game
for 2 weeks throughout the season.
But getting into the games, did we talk about the Bengals Browns?
We on our last a little bit because I picked the Bengals and you picked the Browns. We did it Thursday right before. I mean, I think 2 or 3 hours before kickoff. But we were texting a little bit about it during the game, and I just said I told you, I don't know when it was, but I said Joe Burrow is going to be the best quarterback in that division in 3 years, if it even takes that long, because that dude's the real deal. He really is. Just
Yeah,
Cincinnati
and
just needs to get him talent around him.
I'm with you on that one. I agreed with you, and I know people are going to look at us sideways because Lamar Jackson's in that division. He's
Yep.
only 4
Something like
maybe,
that.
and he's already won an MVP and looks like he's going to be superb. But I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. I liked watching him in college. I like watching him in the NFL. I still believe that in the next couple of years, defenses are going to catch on and kind of slow him down. And I also still believe his style of play will not last, and history does show us that. So, yeah, I do see a real scenario where in 3 years, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in that division. So I'm with you. Do you have any initial thoughts on the game? I mean, we're not going to break down all these games individually. We're just going to kind of give our overview of how the game went or what do we take away, biggest takeaways.
I mean, I really still don't think the Browns are that good. I know they got a much needed win, and it was only a 5-point victory over maybe one of the worst teams in football. I still think the Browns have a lot to work on. Their running game looked amazing, but I still think there's going to be questions about Baker when he faces better teams, because I think he's undefeated in his career against the Bengals, because and a lot of those good numbers he's put up have been against Cincinnati, but you see when he plays other competition. So, and I mean, maybe this sparks something with his confidence, because he's a very confident player, and once he gets a little bit of confidence, he's maybe a little bit different. But I still need to see him do it against better teams for a while, because that's just still my questions with the Browns. The Bengals they're just bad. They don't have much talent around them, and that's as expected. They have the number 1 pick in the draft this year. It's very rare if you have the number 1 overall pick that you're in the playoffs the very next year. It's or even have a winning record. It's very rare circumstances.
I think they have players on offense. I think the problem is their offensive line is fucking dog shit.
Yeah, it's poo-poo. And
And
AJ Green
their
just looks
defense
old.
isn't good. So if they could upgrade their offensive line, Burrow might be able to keep them in a lot of games strictly with the weapons around him, because AJ Green has a decent way to go to get back to where he was at one point. I don't remember his target number, but he had a lot of targets and very few receptions. Did he have 3 catches?
Targets and only had 3 catches, and a few of them were right in his hands that normally AJ Green makes.
But he has some younger guys, and I mean, I like Joe Mixon in the backfield.
He's a good player. He'd be talked about a lot more if he wasn't in Cincinnati.
Agreed. And they do have a long way to go as a team. I think they got some players on offense, but that offensive line's going to hold them back for a long time unless they get that fixed. And the Browns, I picked them to win just because I thought their talent was just way superior to the Bengals' talent overall as a roster. But, I mean, they didn't impress me in this game at all. I mean, their defense, where you have big-name guys from big-name schools all over it, let the Bengals, by a rookie quarterback and a horrible offensive line, put up 30 on you. So I'm not too convinced that the Browns are going to do much this year. But you never know. Maybe new head coach getting his first win, it'll send them on a trend upward. Giants and Bears, I don't really have much to say. The biggest takeaway is Saquon's out.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a huge injury for them. But, I mean, the Bears went up 17-0 at halftime and didn't score a single point in the second half. I think that the whole Mitch Trubisky thing, I don't know if there was a lot of people saying he could still be a good quarterback after that Week 1 performance. I mean, it was against the Lions. The Lions blow fourth quarter leads like it's their job. I mean, that's just basically what they're put in the NFL to do, is blow fourth quarter leads. So, I mean, I still think the Bears are just not a very good team. The Giants are just flat out just worse. The Giants are embarrassing. Daniel Jones turns the ball over way too much, even though I like some of the stuff that he does. Their defense is atrocious, and that even speaks even more to how bad the Bears' offense is, because they only put up 17 points against a very, very bad defense, maybe one of the worst in the league. So that's really all my takeaway from that game. There's not much.
I think the Bears are by far the worst 2-0 team in the league right now.
Absolutely. Their record does not indicate who they are.
And it doesn't indicate how they're going to finish either.
Agreed. Because they're not good. They're just not.
Okay, this game, I don't even know where to begin on the Falcons-Cowboys.
Just let me read you one thing first.
Okay, go ahead.
Before you start.
Go ahead.
Matt Ryan threw 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Last touched the ball when his team had a 39-30 lead with 3 minutes left, and he lost that game.
Yeah, I mean, that should sum it up right there.
Just think about that. How does that happen?
I could also bring up the stat where it was teams were 440 and 0 when scoring 39 points and having 0 turnovers. They won 440 out of 440 times previously, and the Falcons managed to be the one team that fucked that up and let the Cowboys come back. Just if you have not watched the onside kick that the Cowboys recovered at the end of the game to allow them to take the final drive down and win the game, please go watch that, because I believe a sophomore football player on JV would understand the kicking rules more than the Falcons did in that game. Just to sum it up, Cowboys line up for an onside kick. First of all, kudos to them, because I've never seen a kicker put the ball on the ground the way he did and kick it like a spinning top. But whatever, he kicks the ball and it goes for the onside kick. And the rule clearly states, and I'm sure 100% of people listening right now understand, the Cowboys cannot touch the ball until it goes 10 yards. Then it's fair game for them to recover. The Falcons can jump on it at any point in time, recover it, and win the game, just kneel the rest of the clock out. What do the Falcons do? Their guys literally back up and just are backing up with the ball, thinking they can't touch it until it hits 10 yards. They allow the Cowboys to just follow the ball, and once it hits 10 yards, the Cowboys jump on it first, and the Falcons are looking around like, I don't know what just happened. Dan Quinn should have been fired immediately after that game, and I don't feel bad saying that. You cannot, as a head coach, not have your hands team prepared for that. In what practice did he ever coach up when they kick the onside kick? Back up. Once it hits 10, jump on it.
I mean, it's honestly one of the worst things you'll ever see, and not just on TV. It was that bad. I mean, exactly indefensible, inexcusable. There's really no way to describe it. I mean, it was awful. These guys are getting paid to play football and don't fucking know what's going on. I mean, how does that happen? The onside kick, especially with the new rules, has become the least unsuccessful play in NFL history.
I mean, they're trying to start a new trend they're trying to make a rule change to where instead of doing onside kick, because it's such a low probability, going forward at 4th and 20
4th and
or something.
15 is what they want. They want to do a 4th and 15 from your own 25 or 30 yard line.
And they believe teams
and then you can
will
get the
do
ball
that
back.
Choose to go that route.
I think
over
every team in the
kick.
NFL, no matter who you have on your roster, at quarterback, receiver, coach, offensive line, that is a more successful play than the onside kick. It just is. I know we've already seen, and I think in the first 2 weeks, I think we've already seen 2 successful onside kicks. I don't remember who got the first one, but I'm almost positive it happened last week. I have no words, Jay.
I don't either.
The Falcons should have won this game by 40 points. It speaks to how bad their defense is.
After the Colts game, I was listening to that, and I just texted you. You had already turned it off or whatever. I said,
no,
did you
watch
that Cowboys game? You said no. I said, yeah, they just won the game. And you were like, what? Okay. All of a sudden, my dogs are going nuts. Hey! Yeah, that's how you calm them down right there.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows. You got to put your
Jay's
foot
like
down.
Caesar, if you've ever seen the dog guy. That's Jay.
The dog whisperer. Yeah, dog yeller.
I just don't understand how they lost that game. Well, apparently it didn't work, so Jay has a little bit more things to do. But, I mean, really, the Falcons have put up a bunch of numbers every year. I really don't think that's how Arthur Blank expected the season to start after the finish that they had last year. After in their last 8 games, they went 6-2, finished 7-9 the past 2 years. Offensively, they can score with anybody and put up numbers against just about any team in the league. But defensively, they haven't been able to stop anybody since the first half of Super Bowl 52 or whatever Super Bowl they lost to New England when they were up 28-3. after that, they've basically been one of the worst defenses in all of football. Jerry, you back, man?
You're going to have to welcome restart. I'm about to kill him.
All right. So Jay is angry, but Jay, what game do you want to go to next?
Did you finish off the Bears Giants?
Yeah, man, your memory still is bad.
Cowboys,
and it was just
Falcons,
8 seconds ago. There you go.
Lions, Packers. They're just. I'm still not convinced that the Packers.
You
are
just
very
get mad
good.
every time the Packers win. I feel like.
I do, because I've been saying for 2 years that they're not that good, and somehow they keep winning games.
I mean, their
but then when it
offense
really
through
matters,
the first 2 games has looked pretty damn good.
they don't win.
But that Devontae Adams, if he has a significant hamstring injury, their offense will change drastically.
Oh yeah, and that's what I tried saying at your house before. I said, I mean, we'll have to watch Jeffrey Okudah, who honestly got picked on and did not look great for the Lions
No, we did
in
not.
that game. I don't remember the target share, but I saw that he was targeted like 13 times or something and allowed 10 catches. I mean, he allowed a really high passer rating of like 110. It wasn't good.
No, he looked bad.
But
he didn't
what
look
my
like the
point
number 3.
was,
I mean, he's a rookie. It's only his second week. Cut the guy a little slack, Jay.
I mean, I agree. And what happened when the Packers got in the playoffs last year was, and this is what I kept saying, if they run into a team where the cornerback can just lock down, like they have a good enough cornerback like the Saints, where they can just take Lattimore and shadow Devontae Adams and basically take him out of the game, they don't really have a second option offensively besides the running back. I mean, is Marquez Valdez-Scantling scaring anybody? Is Lazard scaring anybody? They just have a bunch of okay receivers who really I feel comfortable with anybody's number 2 guarding. Aaron Rodgers looked phenomenal through the first 2 games. I'll give him that. I mean, this
Aaron
offense
Jones looked pretty damn good.
Yes, he
yesterday
did.
against Detroit. I mean,
total touchdowns.
I know it's the Lions. I don't think they're that great, but I don't want to just fully discredit everything just because of the teams that they've played. Because going into Week 1, a lot of people had high hopes for the Vikings and that Vikings defense, and Aaron Rodgers shredded it. Detroit, I saw a lot of people. They signed a few guys. They drafted Jeff Okudah. Defensively, this was their year to improve because it's the make or break year for Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. So they had a lot of high expectations too. And like I said, the Packers offense going in 43 and 42 points in back-to-back weeks. All right, Jay, what game do you want to go to next?
We are going to the Vikings-Colts, going right down the list.
All right.
Overwhelming thoughts was Colts look way better than they did in the first week. They still got some issues to clean up. They kind of got hit with injuries. But I think the bigger takeaway is how bad the Vikings have looked through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This is not the same defense that they had a couple of years ago when they were top 5 to 8 defense in the league. I mean, consistently under Mike Zimmer. They lost Anthony Barr for the season. The Colts were able to just basically run up and down the field whenever they wanted to. Phillip Rivers threw the ball like 25 times, and they still won by, however many that is, 17 points. And it really, if they wanted it to be, it probably could have been like 40 to 10.
I mean, the Colts didn't really care about that last touchdown either.
At all. They were basically backing off and letting them move down the field, and they finally scored. I mean, if you take away the opening drive touchdown for the Vikings.
It was a field goal.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay, the opening drive, and then you take away the final touchdown drive. The Colts had went on a series. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like punt, fumble, interception, punt, interception. Like the Colts just they could not move the ball. I think in between those 2 series, the Vikings' longest offensive drive was 22 yards.
And I think that was the one right before half where the Colts were playing 3 deep and Justin Jefferson had a 22-yard gain across the middle. I believe that was that drive for 22 yards. Because, yeah, Kirk Cousins, I mean, I heard this today, and, I mean, it makes sense because of the franchise tag and all the money he got from the Vikings guaranteed. He's been the highest-paid player in the NFL over the past 4 years. Yesterday,
and that's what you're paying for.
If you'd have told me that, I'd have cut him immediately. No, I wouldn't do that. But, I mean, just how bad he was, if you're making that much money, and that's been the thing with Kirk, because to an extent, I do think that some of the criticism has been unfair towards him. But when you're making that amount of money, you have to face that criticism because you're being paid like a Mahomes, like Rodgers, like Brady, like Breeze, like Manning, the elite guys, you are making that much money, and you have clunkers like this. The great quarterbacks don't have clunkers this bad. I mean, yeah, you'll see a guy have a really bad game sometimes where they do throw 3 interceptions, but they're still putting up 300 some yards, staying in games. I mean, they don't have like consecutive weeks where they're this bad. I mean, he was off target. He was out of rhythm. You heard some of the guys on the broadcast be like, look, you just got to show up ready for the game. And they could tell that the Vikings were just flat. They didn't show up. That's part of coaching. That's part of the leaders that you have on your team. I think I see why Stephon Diggs wanted the hell out of Minnesota, man.
No doubt about it.
Because
I don't know.
And I didn't realize this either. They had lost 6 defensive starters at the start of this season. That is huge. That's really big. I thought that the Vikings could piece it together because of some of the pieces I really liked defensively. Them getting Yannick Ngakoue. I know that they're missing Daniil Hunter, which is a huge aspect to their defense. But their secondary, even with Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris, their secondary sucks.
Yeah, it's not very good, and I think that showed.
Yeah.
But then again, the Colts really just ran the ball. But, I mean, Phillip Rivers got to do whatever he wanted. The only interception he threw was one that bounced right off of the third-string tight end's hands and got picked off in the air, which should have been a completion. I mean, they weren't doing anything defensively that even challenged the Colts a little bit.
No, I thought the Colts looked much better. I thought the play calling was better. We heard all week, probably not anybody else besides Colts fans, Frank Reich talk about how they just abandoned the run game too much, and Jay and I mentioned that after their Week 1 loss at Jacksonville. Frank just acted like they were down 27 points instead of 7. A majority of that second half got away from the run. That's their bread and butter. I mean, you're paying a lot of money to these guys up front. Utilize them. Phillip Rivers at this stage in his career does not need to be throwing 45 times a game. That's not going to win you a lot. Jonathan Taylor looks like a guy who can carry the load. So, I mean, I liked what I saw in them. I also liked the pass rush that the Colts were able to get in a majority of this game. They were also a reason why Kirk Cousins didn't look that comfortable, because they were in his face a lot, and you could see where he was starting to feel the pressure even if it wasn't there. But I thought the Colts played much, much better in Week 2 than they did Week 1.
Yeah, I'd like to say if the jury's still out on the Colts, let's see what they do in Week 3, but they play the fucking Jets. So
their next 5 games they should win.
Yeah, so I mean, they have an easy upcoming schedule. So, I mean, I think the upcoming 5 games should tell you a lot. If they start losing to some bad teams,
Very true.
Colts are probably a pretty bad team or below average team. If they clean up like they should and beat these next 5 opponents like they should, maybe they're a decent team.
They're going to get a real test Week 8 at home against the Ravens. That's going to be a real test. Let's see what the Colts are actually made of. So, yeah, like you said, we'll see.
Not too much to say about the Bills-Dolphins games other than Josh Allen looked really good. I mean, he set career highs in passing yards and passing touchdowns.
I said Josh Allen is here.
Yeah, and I said I'm not ready to go there yet.
All right,
I mean, he's inconsistent as shit.
Hold on. I just want to say a couple things about this because, yes, I get it. His first 2 games were against the Jets and the Dolphins. But, a guy who a lot of people consider the greatest of all time played those same 2 shitty franchises for 20 years and was praised out the ass when he put up these type of numbers against this team. And now I've seen this on a couple of the big networks, on Twitter, being like, pump the brakes, it's the Jets, it's the Dolphins. I didn't see that same shit when it was Tom Brady. So I don't want to hear it now when it's Josh Allen, because he's looked really fucking good through the first 2 weeks, and people are trying to discredit it, and I'm not having him.
No, and I'm not even.
I'm not talking about you. It's in particular.
This couldn't be the turn of something. Like, he has looked. I mean, I think right now there's probably 2 or 3 MVP candidates. I think Russell Wilson's leading the show, but I think
absolutely
Josh Allen through 2 weeks has to be right there in consideration. So what he's doing up to this point, it's only been 2 weeks. That's phenomenal. Let's see if he can carry it over the entire season, because he's shown in the past a lot of inconsistency issues.
And he has.
Where he'll have a great game and then a really bad game and then 2 average games and a really good game, then a bad game. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not ready to sit here and say he's arrived, he's here. But I do like your point of, some guy was praised in that division for beating up on the bad teams constantly, and that's what he's doing. But let's see what he can do against good teams as well.
Okay, and that's fair. I've seen him progress so far from year 1 to year 2. He definitely progressed. He worked on the accuracy issues that he definitely had. I won't say that. And then this year, I mean, so far they finally got. I mean, Diggs had 8 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown. They finally got him a true number one wide receiver who can beat man-to-man coverage, has a huge catch radius, and on another point, the Dolphins, that secondary, they have a lot of money invested in that secondary. That's supposed to be the best part of their defense, and it was shredded by Josh Allen.
He looked good. I don't have an argument there. Dolphins, you got a long way to go.
They're just bad.
Yep.
We'll see when it's finally Tua time.
I actually do like that they're not throwing Tua into the fire.
I do
right
too
now.
Because they're just not good. They don't have a very good roster. Their offensive line is not very good. Their run game is non-existent, and they would put him in a bad position. I agree with you.
Next game, 49ers Jets.
Injuries. 49ers,
yeah,
man, those injuries are going to really haunt them. We'll see how they really are affected by what's the status of Jimmy G next week, because I don't think Nick Mullins is carrying this team. George Kittle's going to be week to week. Deebo Samuel's at least out next week. Mostert, Coleman. I mean, who do they have left? I mean,
dude, how bad are the Jets? Everything you just said,
they're terrible.
And the 49ers still won.
They're horrible.
31-13.
What you said something about how if they finish with the worst record in the league, I mean, they really have to seriously consider taking Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, Gase is gone for sure.
He should be fired next week.
He should have been fired already.
Yeah.
But if they go and get the number one seed, they have to take Trevor Lawrence, man. Like, the Cardinals set a precedent. Admit your faults. I'm not saying that Darnold is bad, but he's not good enough to carry a roster. So cut your losses. Take the quarterback number one, who a lot of people are saying transcendent. You will still be able to get something for Darnold. You're not going to get the same compensation that you paid for him to draft him in the first place. But as a young quarterback, if you move on from him early, I guarantee you there's always going to be a team out there that loved him during the draft that still believes they can make it happen with him. And maybe they can.
Apparently
so
the
get
Giants
what you can for him. Take the quarterback. Well, the Giants might be fighting for the number one spot with them.
I'm just kidding. I think so far, I mean, I'd probably rather have Daniel Jones than Sam Darnold to this point up in their careers. That's not saying a lot. But anyways, yeah. The Jets, what an embarrassment, man.
Good luck with the number one pick.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up.
Yeah, they're gonna be they're in that hunt for the number one pick, so they're just that bad. A team, let's just jump to this one then real quick. A team who everyone thought, and they still may be in the running for the number one pick, but the Jaguars, man, they put up a hell of a fight against the Titans. They easily could have won that game. They went toe-to-toe offensively with them, where I think, including you and IJ, we both thought they were the worst team in the league. They through the first 2 weeks, they don't look like the worst team in the league. They really
No, they don't. They're 1-1. They put up 30 points both games, I believe, or at least they put up week 1, 27.
Yeah.
So close to 30 both games. Their offense has been humming. Their defense has some problems. Again, they're nowhere near the defense they were in 2017. Is that the year they made the AFC Championship game? But I'll tell you what, they're playing hard, and it does not look like the Jaguars are fighting for that number one seed to get the number one quarterback, because I think this team believes in Gardner Minshew.
He's balling. He's trying to keep that job. I mean, he threw for 340 yards and 3 TDs.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of fun to watch. And they got a running back who keeps to himself but looks better than Fournette ever had in Jacksonville, which is weird to say because I don't even know the guy's name off the top of my head.
He was an undrafted rookie. I don't know his name either.
This is the first 2-0 start for the Titans since 2008. So maybe the Titans are good. Maybe the Colts, Titans, and Jaguars in that division are all a lot closer than we thought they'd be.
Maybe they're just all pretty average teams that aren't legit contenders, but will be competitive against every team that they play this year. Because I think I picked the Titans to win this division because I thought they were the best team. I really like the combination of I like Tannehill in that system. They were also without A.J. Brown last week, so that and Tannehill still threw for 4 touchdowns. I know it's the Jaguars, but I mean, still, I just think that the Titans, they're just going to be in every game because of how well they're coached, and they're just tough as shit. Mike Vrabel doesn't allow them to be a soft team. I mean, he just doesn't. I think if he was, he would still try and get in those pads and go out there and try and just kick someone in the fucking nuts if he could.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a badass. So, yeah.
So it's going to be fun to see how the AFC South plays out, because it seems to me that, honestly, you could say all 4 teams are a lot closer than I thought they'd be. I thought there was going to be 2 good teams between Tennessee and the Colts, an average team in Houston, and a very bad team in Jacksonville. And it turns out Tennessee looks pretty good. Pretty okay. Colts look okay. They've looked up and down through 2 weeks. They've come out and proven me wrong about my initial thoughts on them. I don't know
everybody wrong
where they'll stand come week 17, but through 2 weeks they look pretty okay. And True. Houston, they still got Deshaun Watson, so I don't know. That's going to be a division that could go any which way.
All right, Jay, take us somewhere else.
Rams Eagles. Eagles might be the most
in Philly.
Yeah, Eagles might be the most disappointing team.
There's trouble in Philly. Carson Wentz just flat out has to play better. There's no excuses for him. He's been bad through the first 2 games. There were the virtual crowd booed this guy. He was just awful. Really was. I don't think you can even credit this to injuries on the offensive line. I know that they have a few, but all his skill guys are healthy outside of Alshon Jeffrey. Miles Sanders was back. Their defense just looks soft. They allowed the Rams to do whatever they wanted. And the Rams, honestly, have surprised me for the first 2 weeks. They're 2-0. I didn't think they would win either of those games. But they're running back by committee just look tough. Jared Goff actually looks confident in himself right now. Again, it's 2 weeks. I don't know how good the Rams actually are, or if it's just the Cowboys' mismanagement in week 1 and the Eagles just being that bad and that out of sync. And I don't know. The Eagles, to me, like you said, probably are the most disappointing team so far, because I thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the league this year.
Unfortunately, I did too. And I like how you said at this point you can't blame the offensive line. Yes, the offensive line isn't doing Carson Wentz any favors, but he knows what he has in front of him, and he's choosing to hold on to the ball for so long. Get rid of the ball. You know what you got. Call quicker routes. Do some hot routes. Do some audibles. Change your protection. Do what you got to do. But I believe they had Lane Johnson back for this game.
They did.
Which arguably the best right tackle in the game, or top 5 at the minimum. So at some point you got to put the blame on Carson Wentz a little bit.
And I love Carson Wentz, but I think through these first 2 games, the majority of the blame goes on him.
Just a fun fact for everybody. Did you say you had Higbee on your bench in fantasy?
I did, man. I'm pissed about it.
Who had a career-high 3 receiving touchdowns?
Yeah, you're telling me.
All right, Broncos-Steelers. I don't know. Drew Lock's already hurt. Big Ben looks like he's gained his original form back.
The Broncos are another team that have hit the injury bug pretty hard already this year.
For Sutton, I think Jerry Jeudy went out.
Phillip
Von
Lindsay,
Miller, Phillip Lindsay. They're starting. Yep, I was high on the Broncos.
They were honestly still within 5 points and had the ball to go down and win the game. It's just, again,
who we both believe is a good team in the
Vic
Steelers.
Fangio does not know how to control a clock. He is like Chuck Pagano 2.0. This dude doesn't understand clock management at all. Doesn't know how to utilize the 2-minute warning, his timeouts. That was their bugaboo last year. They lost 7 games decided by 1 possession. They've already lost 2 so far this year by 1 possession. It's just, he hasn't figured that part out. He's a 90-year-old head coach learning how to fucking manage the clock, and he just hasn't figured it out.
You want to know something crazy? When's the last time you remember Denver, besides the Peyton Manning years, being just really good? They're never one of the top teams you think of when you're just like a really good team.
They were decent with Jake Plummer for a little bit in the early 2000s.
Okay, early 2000s. So let me hit a little trivia for you. How many times since 1970 do you think the Denver Broncos have started 0-2, even with all those bad years or average years?
Twice.
Yeah, well, you undershot me a little bit. Only 4 times.
Oh,
but
okay.
Dude,
well, hey, that's still, that's still pretty good.
Since 1970, that's what, 50
40 years? Or 50. Yeah, you're right, 50.
Yeah, 50 years, and they only have done it 4 times. So I don't know. That was a little fun fact for you, but
It's pretty good. I also think
I,
they're about if Jeff Driscoll, which looks like he's going to start when they play Tampa, which again is
he looked like he played pretty well, man. He was
for
dropping
the
some
Buccaneers,
dimes.
but and Tom Brady, who's luckier than all hell, but it'll be the 8th quarterback they've started since Peyton left.
Not good.
No, it's not.
Not a way to start.
No.
Panthers Bucks. Since you want to mention Brady,
Jay,
I'll let you hit this.
It happened 2 hours after the fucking game ended. Brady
I know.
bounces back.
Hold on. What did we say last week?
It happened already. It's happened for 20 years. This guy, he doesn't have to do anything, and his team wins. And the media narrative is always Brady carries Bucks. Brady don't doubt this guy. He's still the GOAT. He's still very good. The Buccaneers have nothing to worry about. It was just one game. It already happened, and they beat probably the worst team in football in the Panthers, who were within 7 points, and then Christian McCaffrey hurts his ankle, out for the rest of the game. The Panthers turn the ball over 4 times. Tom Brady doesn't even look that great. They put up 21 points in the first half and don't even score it again until the end of the game. Until there you go, the Panthers giving the ball away. Easy scores for Tampa Bay. It's just it's sick, man. It really is. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you some screenshots where I'm on ESPN site, and the first thing I see is Brady bounces back.
Like I said, it was 2 hours after the game.
He was outstanding. Then you click the link. The very first thing you see is Bucks defense forces 4 turnovers and stuffs a fake punt to win the game. But yet they lead it with how outstanding Brady was.
Yeah.
Then you start reading more into it. He led 4 touchdown drives, 2 that came off turnovers. What and how can you lead with Brady's back and playing outstanding? Then I read another one on Twitter where they say 2 veteran Hall of Fame quarterbacks changed teams this offseason. Through 2 games, they've both thrown 71 passes. One's 44 of 71, one's completing 62%, one's completing 78%. One's thrown for 456 yards, one's thrown for 577 yards. One's averaging 6.4 yards per attempt. The other's averaging 8.1 yards per attempt. One's thrown 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. The other one's thrown 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. One has a passer rating of 77. One has a passer rating of 92. That's Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers. And all I'm hearing from all the analysts are Phillip Rivers is back to his turnover-prone self that is being carried by this Colts run game and defense, and yet you turn it around to the other page, and Tom Brady, who had the worst stats, is carrying the Buccaneers. He's the reason they're 1-1.
Yeah.
The same record as the Colts, by the way. They've won 1, lost 1, and he's outstanding. And it just boggles my mind on what is happening right now.
It's stupid. You know, in his last 16 games, he's completing less than 60% of his passes.
That is unbelievable.
It's just I don't know I don't understand how more people don't see this happens for this dude. I just don't get it.
Just admit it, dude. He's fucking old.
He's old. He hasn't been that good in the last 4 years. I mean, just go look at the numbers. Yeah, I know he won a Super Bowl the last 3 years ago or whatever. He was fucking terrible in that game. He got absolutely carried by his defense in that game. I mean, the Patriots gave him 3 damn points in that Super Bowl that he won. And then his last game with the Patriots ended on a pick six loss to the 6th-seeded Titans. And so I can't talk about it anymore, Jay.
We'll be back on in a few weeks to go back over, hey, obviously,
when their schedule starts to get tough,
yep,
you'll see the real Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You will.
Yep. I believe they have a really tough stretch at the end of their schedule, which is exactly about the time that Tom Brady will start shitting the bed with his arm strength.
Yep.
So let's talk about this at the end of the week. We'll bring it up weekly, but we'll revisit it week 17. Cardinals and the Washington football team. I was way off on
you
this
thought
game.
the Redskins, the Washington football team. I apologize for saying that name. They are no longer are associated with the Washington football team. Yeah, Jay thought they were going to win, and I
had logical reasoning.
But I told you. You said because of their front seven, you didn't know if the Cardinals would be able to handle it, and I countered that with, they handled the 49ers front seven last week, and that front's pretty damn good too. And Kyler Murray just is amazing. This dude is going to be something special. He already is. I mean, he is damn good. He's just flat out just a baller.
Yeah, and the Reds, the Washington football team,
It's hard not to call them that.
Their offense just isn't there yet. I mean, they're relying on running back by committee where they lost Adrian Peterson, they lost Darius Geis. They're relying on a rookie running back and a bunch of, really no-name guys in the backfield. Haskins has taken a step forward this year, I do believe, but he's still not there yet. Your best receiver is Terry McLaurin, who really should be a number 2 on a good team. They just don't have the weapons in Washington yet. I think if you're a Washington fan, you should be optimistic and happy about where your team's going. You're still 1-1 in a division where the Eagles are 0-2, the Giants are 0-2 and look like complete shit, and Dallas just won. You can make a case the best comeback of all time. I mean, I'm not going to call it that, but statistically, 440. What I'm saying, I'm trying to make a point that it was. Huh?
It's not the best comeback of all time. It was week 2.
I agree. Like I said, I'm not calling it the best. I said you can make an argument because 440 times out of 440 times, the way that game shaped up, the opposing team won, and the Cowboys managed to somehow, or I guess Atlanta managed to somehow allow the Cowboys to win.
Historically does this, as we know they give up the worst choke job in the history of the Super Bowls. Point being, the
Cowboys should be 0-2 as well, and the Washington should be leading this division at 1-1.
And that's true. All right, so I'll give you that. They're sitting decent right now, but again, Haskins still has a lot of work to do. I like his progression. Their defense is tough. They just had a bad matchup with Murray. I just think he's just going to make every team have to really game plan for him because he's kind of Russell Wilson 2.0, man, with his scrambling ability. He's not as good, obviously, as Russell Wilson is right now, but, just the way he scrambles and moves in the pocket, and he's just so much faster than a lot of these guys out there. He really is. It's just, he's like a little Tasmanian devil out there, but he's got a cannon.
Yes, he does. And this is Arizona's first 2-0 start since 2015, so props to the Cardinals. This should be a fun division. Yeah. They're tied with Seattle.
It's probably the best division in football.
The Rams.
It has been for a couple years, I think, and off and on. And I know they had some down years here and there, but this has been a really good division for a long time.
And realistically, all 3 teams in that division could make the playoffs.
All 4 could.
No.
The first year, there's 3 wild card teams. It could happen.
I know, but I'm writing off the 49ers.
Okay, all right.
They're just injury
riddled, and I'm just saying it's a possibility that all 4 could.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I was saying. Kansas City. What do we got? KC and the Chargers.
Yep. The first showing of Justin Herbert.
I just don't understand. Did you hear Anthony Lynn after the game said if Tyrod Taylor's healthy, he's their starter?
I'm not buying it.
You get what the. I know it's the. I thought Herbert looked pretty damn impressive. He made a few rookie mistakes that you're going to make, but your ceiling with Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback. He is who he is. He's not going to improve. He completed like 50% of his passes against the shit Bengals in week 1. You actually saw the Chargers were able to attack downfield with some of their weapons they have, which they have good skill guys, and Eckler and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Hunter Henry. They've got good players on offense. And with Tyrod Taylor, they're just not that utilized. They're not. So I don't know why you would start Tyrod Taylor anymore, because I think now you just let Herbert go. I think he showed that he can play in this league.
Yeah, I'm not buying that it's still Tyrod's job. I think he lost that job the second that Justin Herbert put them in a position to win the game. And he did make some rookie mistakes. Like there was that one play where he could have easily ran for the first. He was at the first down marker and tries to cock back and launch it way downfield across his body and into double coverage, and it just gets picked off. And that was a big play in the game. He missed a couple throws where his inaccuracy showed through, but he's a rookie starting. They told him 15 minutes before the game that he's going to be the starting quarterback against the defending Super Bowl champions.
And he threw for 311 yards in his debut. And had a touchdown on the ground and through the air, and took the defending Super Bowl champions to overtime.
Now, if he's the starting quarterback come the next time they play, do I think it's the same game? No, I don't. I think the Chiefs win probably by 14 points.
Because you can prep for them, and you have a different game plan.
And their entire game plan was for Tyrod Taylor, and and the rookie steps on the field. But I think there's a lot that you like to
You also
see.
got to look at it the other way. I mean, their offense was prepped for Tyrod Taylor to start until 10 minutes before the game, and Justin Herbert still was able to run the offense because he's got legs too, and I know they like to utilize Tyrod on the ground. Justin Herbert can do very similar things to Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah,
You
and
know
I
how big
think
of a fan I am of Justin Herbert.
you are. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is the Chiefs really did not play a good game.
No.
And I think that's the best game that Justin Herbert could have put together, and they still got beat by the Chiefs in overtime.
That shows how good the Chiefs are and how quickly they can score, because I think they sometimes play down to their competition. The Chiefs do. I think you see that. I think you saw it last year when they went on that stretch where I think they were like 3-3 at one point last year because they played down to the Colts. That one game they played down to Tennessee. So they do that from time to time. So, but I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, they're going to be there with the best of them in the AFC just because of who they have skill-wise offensively, and Andy Reid. And I think they have enough defense to stick in because their offense can score at will.
And I don't want to let this slip through the cracks. What Anthony Lynn did in the fourth quarter was just, I think, another horrible coaching game. You get the ball.
He does that a lot too.
You get the ball in overtime going against one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen against one of the arguably already one of the best quarterbacks of all, if not one of the best, one of the most talented quarterbacks, if not the most talented quarterback we've ever seen at the position. You know the Chiefs are going to put points on the board. You're in overtime. If you punt the ball, all the Chiefs have to do is get enough yards to kick a field goal, which is almost a guarantee that they will, and you decide to punt on 4th and 1. I think it's a horrible game plan.
You even heard Romo on the broadcast. He's like, you have to go for this here. He was like, look who's on the other side of that field. It's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You have to go for this, and then they punt. Yeah.
Oh, I a bad play. And can I a little shout out to Harrison, who in overtime drills a 53-yard field goal.
Yep.
Then they have a penalty. It goes back to a 58-yard field goal.
Still
which,
drills it.
Let me remind you, he had already nailed a 58-yarder earlier in the game. Drills the 58-yarder to win the game. They come to find out the Chargers had called a timeout. He has to kick the 58-yarder again and drills it again to win the game. That might be one of the best kicking games I've seen in years.
I saw after the game, he apparently was making them from 67 in pregame warmups.
I believe it, dude. That dude looks like he has a fucking boot.
A cannon on your right hip.
I think he's the second best kicker behind Justin Tucker in the game right now.
You can make that argument for sure.
Speaking of Justin Tucker, the Ravens played the Texans and mopped the floor with them just like they did the Browns week 1.
Yeah, the Ravens, I don't even think they played that great of a game, but they still just mopped the floor with Houston. They did. I mean, they really didn't. I mean, Lamar played just an average game for his standards, because if you're basing everything off last year, you expect them to have 500 yards of total offense and everything, but they got a defensive touchdown. They just were more physical than the Texans, and that's just who the Ravens are. They're a physical, get in your mouth, don't let anything easy. You saw just an incredible interception by Marcus Peters, Deshaun Watson, that throw. Man, that was just incredible. So, I mean, the Ravens are still, just really, really good. Again, it's just going to, I think, and this may be a little unfair because I hate this, how everyone just straight up devalues the regular season for anything, for NBA, for NFL. I just don't like that at all, because they mean stuff, or they wouldn't play those games, because now everyone's just saying, oh, well, Lamar's got to prove it in the playoffs. So I just feel like that's going to hang over his head until he maybe at least gets to the Super Bowl. Or wins a playoff game, because they did it unfairly to Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers, and they just do it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, here's a stat for you. If you take out, not even accounting for his legs and his rushing touchdowns, in Lamar's last 9 regular season games, he has 28 passing touchdowns to 1 interception.
Yeah, that's he takes care of the ball. They don't turn the ball over a lot.
Last game to talk about, Patriots Seahawks. That was the game last night. What a thriller that was. Man, I mean, that's 2 really good teams going after each other.
That is, and this is the best quarterback the Patriots have had in 4 years.
Yeah, you can make that argument.
I'm being serious, and that's just it might be a little bit of hate because I know everybody knows how I feel about Tom Brady, but I mean, this was the same exact roster offensively than it was last year. And
the one that everyone said had
no weapons,
Brady had
no weapons. Tom Brady needs help. He has no help.
On top of that,
Cam Newton threw for 397 yards at Seattle last night.
He's been there all of a month. Doesn't know the offense really. And what he do? He made Edelman. He set Edelman's career high in receiving yards.
Yes.
His second game with the Patriots.
Cam looks good, man. I texted you that. I said he just looks flat out really good. He looks. I pray that he stays healthy because I've been a much bigger fan of Cam than you, Jay. I told you the only one criticism I've really ever had of Cam Newton was after that Super Bowl loss, just how he handled it. But people have mistakes, so I just don't like how he handled that. But I liked him at Auburn. I liked him in Carolina. I like just how he plays. It's just the swagger that he plays with on the field. I think it's charismatic. It gets other players going. And this Patriots team looks like it had, I mean, just on the sideline, I don't know if Bill's loosening the rein a little bit with Cam, but they celebrate a little bit more on the sideline. They look like they're having a little bit more fun than they normally tended to do. But, I mean, they just look good, and they're scary. And
you very well last night could have been looking at the Super Bowl matchup for 2020.
You could. You really could. Because
I mean, we both picked the Seahawks to make it to the Super Bowl, and we both picked the Chiefs. I think we had the same Super Bowl pick, but the day that the Patriots signed Cam Newton, I know we texted each other, and I was like, they're going to the Super Bowl. Like that with what they're going to do with him, and it through 2 weeks, man, it's showing that they very well could.
I mean, you talked about people being in the MVP race. You can throw Cam's name in there as well through the first 2 weeks, what he's been able to do. And I mean, he had the same amount of time to prep as a lot of these other quarterbacks. That's just going to be a benefit of being with
he had less
with
time
Bill
to
Belichick.
Prep than a lot of the
That's true. That's true. But that's something that you're going to see from the Patriots are never going to be unprepared ever. So they're going to be in every game. But Russell Wilson, I mean, he got anything he wanted last night. The interception he threw, I don't blame on him because it went right through Greg Olson's hand and got returned for a touchdown. Other than that, Russell Wilson was just putting every pass where it needed to be, just straight up attacked a defensive player of the year and Stephon Gilmore with DK Metcalf. I would say he won that matchup. Just the prettiest deep ball in the league, even prettier than Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson does. I think it's just this dude. It's insane that this man has never received at least one MVP vote. That is asinine.
Yeah, we had this conversation the other day, and I said you could have made an argument that he deserved at least one vote his rookie year when he led that Seahawks team to the playoffs
for that MVP this year.
I think so too, and they're finally letting him unleash the reins, so they're letting him throw the ball around, which is what we've been saying for years.
You heard Chris Collinsworth say that last night. He was like, and I can't stand Chris Collinsworth, but he made a really good point. He's like, Schottenheimer, he's like, has just had a very good game plan because he's letting Russell Wilson do his thing.
Yeah, that should have been the game plan every week. Just let Russell do his thing. That should be what's on the front page of the folder for every game plan and for every week. Yeah. Let Russ do his thing.
Yeah. So I think, and they have through 2 weeks, and I don't see any reason why they would say, oh, maybe we need to change up our game plan.
Final thoughts. I want your opinion on this. What did you think of the 4th and 1 call at the end of the game to win or lose the game for the Patriots on the goal line?
Just real quick, I thought it was pretty funny what Pete Carroll said after the game. He said, see how hard it is to get 1 yard.
I actually did not hear him say that, so that is hilarious.
Oh, man. I just thought that was pretty funny. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think just maybe 7 times out of 10 that works. It was just the Seahawks just made a good play. I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes the defense just wins and they make a better play because you've seen Cam score on a play similar like that. What's he have, like 60 career rushing touchdowns? And I bet
he scored on a play similar to that in the game.
I mean, that was working. So, I mean, I have no problem with the play call because, again, I mean, like I said, sometimes the defense just wins. Those guys get paid, too, to do exactly what they did. So, just props to them. They just made the play, and the Patriots just executed.
If he scores on that, everybody's saying what a good call it was.
Exactly.
And Cam's a hero and all this shit.
You can't have it both ways.
No, and I actually didn't mind the play call. If I was just to nitpick a little bit, there's two things I might have done different in hindsight. Again, I'm good with the play call. When they lined up and I knew what was coming, I was still okay with it, thinking Cam's going to be able to get that yard. He's a 260-pound mammoth freight train going through that offensive line. The defense made a really, really good play, like you said. But if I was to just nitpick anything, I would say maybe I would have split one wide receiver out wide just to have the threat of the pass.
Just as a decoy.
Or made it some sort of read option play where I'm at least having two different options to run with that ball. But, I mean, if the tight end or the fullback doesn't get blown up by the safety who came in the game for the third string safety, he makes one hell of a play on the fullback, blows him up, and then Collier makes a play on the outside. If that fullback doesn't get blown up like that, I think it's a walk-in to the outside for Cam. But the defense just made a hell of a play, and you got to live with the results. I don't think it was a bad play call.
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
That sums it up for all these games. If you want to somewhat say what we're going to see tonight, no Michael Thomas for the Saints. Even without Michael Thomas, I think the Saints probably win by 10.
I'll take the Saints. I think it's going to be like a 34-24 ball game.
Yeah, so that's what I just said. So they win by 10.
I didn't even hear you. I guess that kind of just went over my head. But yeah, I think the Raiders will be able to put up a little bit of points because I think that's what their offense is built to do, and they just can't stop anybody. I don't see them stopping the Saints offense, like you said, even without Michael Thomas.
Yeah. All right, that's our rundown of the NFL in week 2. We can quickly go over what's going on in the NBA right now.
So I just wanted to let's start with that Heat Celtics. We'll finish with the Lakers and Nuggets because I have more to say about that than the Heat and the Celtics. You know, Jay, I don't even remember. Well, I don't remember. I think the Heat went up 2-0 the last time we had talked, or they were up 1-0, and then they played that Thursday night after we did the last pod. We talked about it, but I think you can really sum up those first two games for the Celtics as they just could not close. They couldn't close the games. They didn't know what to do down the stretch. It looked like they were taking a lot of bad shots. You saw Jason Tatum just kind of go into those long twos or the step-back threes, and Marcus Smart also shot a fadeaway in one of those games when they were down 2 or something, and just some bad shots and bad clock management by the Celtics. And the Heat, on the other hand, were just able to execute a lot better than what the Celtics did in those first two games. And then come game 3, it changed dramatically because Gordon Hayward came in, and the Celtics basically just played 6 guys. They played their 5 starters, and Hayward coming off the bench because no other player, Wanamaker or Williams, didn't play more than 9 minutes. Cantor played 6 minutes, and they didn't play anybody else. They were like, all right, these are our 6 best players. We need you to take us home. You're playing a lot of minutes because if we lose this game, this series is over because we're not coming down. We're not coming back 0-3. So it was a lot of adjustments. I thought they just played Goran Dragic really well in game 3. And offensively, I thought they moved the ball better. They weren't as stagnant, and they played a lot more team basketball, which what you're used to seeing out of the Celtics.
Yeah, and I think through 2 games, it just looked like the Heat wanted it more, especially down the stretch. And you had the big blow up in the locker room after game 2.
Yep.
Where everybody said Marcus Smart was in there yelling at the team, and a lot of people took that as a negative. And Jaylen Brown came after the game and was like, he's just passionate. I love that about him. I want him on my side. That's where, we just got to figure it out as a team and play better. And that's exactly what they did in game 3.
Yep.
So I stuck with my pick of the Celtics. I'm still going to stick with my pick of the Celtics. Clearly, if they would have went down 3-0, you got to abandon ship. There's not really much coming back from that. But right now, they're just down 2-1. They look like a way better team in game 3 after you said they brought Hayward back into the rotation and just played their 6 best players and said, we're just better, more talent. We're going to beat you. Let's see what happens in game 4. I'll take the Celtics in game 4 as well.
I didn't like the Heat's offense in game 3 either. And maybe the Heat were just kind of due for a clunker. They were 10-1 in the playoffs so far after game 2 of this series, where they had just played basically lights out every single night. So maybe it was bound to happen, but Jay Crowder was taking like step back threes and he shot 2 of 10 from deep. I'm like, that's not going to win you a lot of games with Jay Crowder shooting 10 threes. So, and Iguodala really has been a non-factor in this series. Like I said, they shut Dragic down a lot in game 3, so we'll see how he bounces back. But I think it's going to, and they got a really good rest because they played Saturday and they don't play again until Wednesday. So they got like 3 days off because I think they were trying to avoid Monday Night Football to try and help get some of their ratings. And I also think they were so far ahead of the Western Conference Finals, they wanted that to catch up a little bit too because Game 3 of the West Finals will be played right before Game 4 of the East Finals. So I think you look at both of those things to try and just match everything up. But we'll see because you saw in the Toronto series, Boston, after they won a game, you saw that they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. Let's see how they react in Game 4. Also, let's see if Jimmy Butler's a little bit more aggressive offensively in Game 4, because if the Celtics win tonight, I still will take them in this series. But if they lose, I think it's over because I don't think they come back from 3-1. I really don't.
I'll agree with that.
So see how they respond because you got to see it. All right,
I'll take the Celtics.
All right, Jay. That Nuggets and Lakers game was pretty damn exciting. I mean, you saw the Lakers. You really would think after the first 5 minutes it was 3-2 in the game, and you would have thought the Lakers were up like 15 points because they missed so many bunnies at the rim, and I think Danny Green missed his first like 4 threes, and a lot of them were just wide open. LeBron had their first 12 points of the game because nobody else had anything going offensively, and I mean he only had 6 in the second half. But it was really kind of a tale of two halves for their two stars for the Lakers because LeBron goes off for 20 in the first half, only scores 6 in the second half, and then kind of vice versa. AD only scores, I think it was 8 in the first half, and then he had 22 in the second half, or 9 in the first half, and then 22 in the second half. And he was the one that LeBron said he carried us home because, and that's why you go get 2 stars. That's why you have 2 guys that can do this thing. And that's why you give up all those players, all those picks for Anthony Davis, because I heard a lot of people today were like, oh man, I think I was kind of wrong on that Anthony Davis trade because I thought the Lakers gave up too much and Anthony Davis probably wasn't worth all this, and you mortgage your future, and you have nothing left to pair with LeBron and AD, and it's just they're a special duo, man. And when one guy doesn't have it one night, the other can have it cooking. So it's just really special to have 2 players like that. And that game winner, I heard a lot of people saying today that may be Anthony Davis's like aha moment where he reaches the level of superstar, because before now, I mean, he was really just viewed as an all-star or a star, not a superstar, because he was never on a team in the finals or hadn't won a ring yet or anything like that. So I just want to know some of your thoughts on this game.
Some of my initial thoughts were, I'm going to compare this a lot like I did the Chiefs and the Chargers game. LeBron really didn't have a great game. 3 of the Lakers' 5 starters were in the negative and plus minus, LeBron included.
I think LeBron had the worst and a -9 for the game for the Lakers.
He did. And Mark Morris was was second with -8.
Okay.
They didn't shoot the ball that well. I mean, they actually hit some free throws, but all that considered, and the Nuggets probably played the best game they're going to play this series against them.
That's very
Jamal Murray came out with 25 points. Jokic with 30. Jamal Murray was a plus 16. They got 15 points off the bench out of Michael Porter Jr. All that happened, and they still lost.
Did you know in the 4 minutes that Jamal Murray sat, they were outscored by 18 points?
I did not, but that is fucking atrocious.
Yeah. And I mean, Jokic and Anthony Davis, those two at the end of the game were kind of just going at it. It was just like almost like a one-on-one game within a game. It was
awesome
because I mean, those are probably the 2 best big men. I mean, you can throw Embiid in there when he wants to play. It's just you haven't seen it out of Embiid enough, but 2 of the maybe top 5 big men in the league, arguably, whatever you want to rank them. They scored the final 22 points of this game, and they were going at it each other, offensively and defensively. I mean, that last bucket that put the Nuggets up before AD's game winner, Jokic moved Anthony Davis like it was nothing.
The last 4 buckets. I mean, they went from the first play, if you remember.
No, I just mean the one where he just flat out was like, Anthony Davis isn't stopping me. I'm moving him all the way within 2 feet of the rim, and he did. But
there
with
was
ease.
like 20-something seconds left, I believe. The Nuggets come down. They put up a bad shot. Jokic gets an awesome tip in to put them up, right? So now they're up with, I don't know, 20
on that Jamal Murray
left.
air ball that Jokic just found in the middle of the air.
Awesome play, right? So Jokic's like, all right, I got this. Puts in the tip in. Then Anthony Davis like, oh, really? So they throw it. LeBron brings it down, throws it to him in the paint. He takes a couple steps. Floater. Lakers are back up by 1. So then what do? They come down. The Nuggets inbound the ball. And this is the play you were just talking about. Jokic just backs him down like he's playing some high school player.
Yeah. And that's Anthony fucking Davis.
Yeah, in the running for defensive player of the year.
Second in defensive player of the year, all first team All NBA defense.
Effortless, and just puts it in. Now Nuggets are back up 1 with like 3 seconds left. Lakers get the ball down, and this inbound plays. Miles Plumlee looked fucking lost.
It's Mason.
Dude.
Don't try and throw his brother under the bus.
Mason Plumlee looked so lost in this play. He didn't know what was going on. And Anthony Davis hits that step back 3 right over Jokic. I mean, that's a 7-footer who can play decent defense. I mean, he played great defense on that one.
Yeah.
It's like just, I said,
his defense has been improved.
And he just wets the 3 to win the game. And that, like you said, might have been his coming out step forward moment where he just takes his game to a whole nother level. So
something that I thought was actually was Rondo, after Jokic backed AD all the way down and scored and put them ahead, Rondo goes, hey, he scored on you. Go get him back. And the Lakers bench, when Jokic was guarding AD at the end of the game, apparently JaVale and Dwight Howard were screaming, Thanksgiving, steak dinner, appetizers, filet mignon, glass of champagne, all this shit, basically saying, like, go cook him. He can't take you, shit like that, which, I mean, to be fair, Jokic was giving it right back to AD offensively. Neither of them could stop each other. And sometimes that just happens because good offense is going to beat good defense about 95% of the time. I mean, if you just make tough shot after tough shot, that float, that like fadeaway jumper that Jokic hit at the end in the fourth quarter as well, that just didn't even look like it went through the net at all. Like the net didn't even move. That just, those two were putting on a show, and it was great to watch. But I mean, it sucks for the Nuggets because this was probably their chance to, if they thought they were going to have a chance in the series to win, because they played better than the Lakers. They flat out did. After the Lakers were up 16, they went up 70-54 with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. The Nuggets went on a 21-8 run, and you saw the Lakers were just like kind of going through the motion. They were turning the ball over a lot. They couldn't do shit offensively. LeBron, as good as he was in the first half, it was just a strange second half for him. Like, he didn't attack the basket at all. I don't remember him, other than that time where he slipped on the court, I don't really remember a drive he had in the second half. He pulled up for a lot of threes, a lot of long twos. He was 2 for 9 in the entire second half, and I don't even think he got his first bucket until like 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Just weird. It was just a weird game from LeBron. And like you said, it wasn't good for him. He still finished with 26, 11, and 4. I mean, that's just the standard that he's held to because, I mean, he's one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest player. But, I mean, that, like I said, that's why you get a second guy, and that's why he's worth those young players, those picks, because he can do special things like this on a nightly basis because Anthony Davis is just that special.
Yep. First thing, I do believe I'm going to stick to my pick of a sweep. I didn't hear many people picking a sweep, and I'm going to stick to it because I think this was the only chance they had. And now Lakers should. I'm going to say they win close to double digits each of the next 2 games. And the second thing is, I think you can kind of just sum up the game by saying, okay, the Lakers won by 2 points. Jokic finished with 30. Anthony Davis finished with 31. Jamal Murray finished with 25. LeBron had 26. So right there's your 2 points. The 2 superstars versus 2 superstars. And right. 2 just outplayed the other 2 by just a hair. And story of the game.
That's fair. But I also think that the Nuggets role players have not been very good in this series. I mean, you're basically getting nothing from Gary Harris or Torrey Craig or, I mean, you mentioned it. Michael Porter played well. in that first half, and he made a couple shots in the second half, and that was something that Chris Webber talked about on the broadcast, where every time Michael Porter made a shot, Kyle Kuzma thought that he could come down and do something as well, and he would either turn the ball over or take a horrible shot. So he just kind of got caught up in that one-on-one matchup. The Lakers realistically should have blown the Nuggets out because they were on that trend to do it, and then they just just flat out stopped playing. And that's what the Nuggets do. The Nuggets come back from huge deficits. They see they're down 16. They're like, oh, okay, let's start trying now. Let's actually play and get into our offense and compete defensively. And those 4 missed free throws by PJ Dozier in the fourth quarter were huge for the Nuggets because there you go. There would have been 4 points. That seals the game for Denver if he hits those 4 shots. But there you go. That's a young guy coming in a conference finals game matching up against LeBron and AD. That's
there's where experience
that's a lot to ask for. And you can see it. You can see the young inexperience by the Nuggets compared to because the Lakers got a lot of guys who've been there, done that before. Danny Green, Rondo, LeBron, JaVale all have championships. And
Dwight
Howard's been to the finals. Yep. You just have a lot of guys that have played a lot of playoff minutes, and the Nuggets just don't have that. But you called a sweep. I said Lakers in 6. I just have learned to not count out the Denver Nuggets in this playoff when they're facing deficits in a series or just flat out in a game.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I just had a feeling it was a horrible matchup for the Nuggets, and you just saw the best of Denver and the worst of the Lakers and still came out on top.
And that's true. Then sometimes that happens, and that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And that's something that also you look at in the Eastern Conference Finals as well with Boston, because I think Boston could make a strong case they should be up 3-0 in this series because they outplayed Miami through 3.5 quarters in games 1 and 2 and then ended up losing those 2 games. So, yeah. All right, so we'll see those games. Tuesday, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Tomorrow you get Game 3 Western Conference Finals. Wednesday you get Game 4 Eastern Conference Finals. So, hey, you may see 2-1, you may see 3-0, you may see 2-2, you may see 3-1. We don't know. I'm looking forward to them. And I like that they did that, actually, because they go Tuesday, Wednesday. So, like you said, you get Monday Night Football standalone. And the Thursday night game that the Lakers and the Nuggets will be competing for is Jacksonville and Miami. So, not sure anyone outside of the state of Florida will be tuning much into that game.
Yep, I'm with you.
So, all right. You ready to get out of here, Jay?
I am. I'm ready to eat something.
As always, subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast. You can find us anywhere. Check us out on our YouTube page. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Unwanted Opinions with Nick and Jay. Email unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. Also, when you subscribe, leave a little bit of a rating and a review. It helps out for Jay and I. Questions,
not a little
comments?
Bit of rating, a lot of rating. 5 stars.
Here you go, 5 stars. Yeah, you heard the man. Give it to us.
Until next time.
Until next time.